Welcome back. I'm Vincent Perryman, and you're watching Legalese. Joining us on our show is attorney Thomas Coupé of the Shelby County Juvenile Court. We're discussing the Shelby County Juvenile Court. Tom, we kind of went over all of the what would be the criminal or detention side of juvenile court in the first segment there. And now I think it'd be time to turn to the abuse cases, dependency and neglect, that juvenile court handles, and how juvenile court kind of has to interface with Department of Children's Services on this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, I have a lot of experience in that because when before I came to juvenile court here, I was actually an attorney for the Department of Children's Services in Shelby County and also in Rutherford and Williamson County. So I had some opportunity to spend some time on that side of the program, working with abuse and neglect children. This is probably the most important, in my opinion at least, and I'm by no means discounting delinquency or child support, but the dependency and neglect aspect of this court really, it's really important because the children that come across, in my experience that I've come across, are the ones that need the most help, and the ones that, and I don't want to characterize the delinquents any differently, but these are the ones who really haven't done anything. These are the ones who are literally victims of abuse. And these are the children, unfortunately, that will become the delinquent children in the future or become the ones you see on the news as adults because they haven't gotten the help they needed in the situations that they've been in. And it's really important that people understand when the Department of Children's Services interjects themselves into a case that's brought before the court, many, many layers of effort have already been put into that child or before that child is actually brought to court. The department can act in a lot of fashions behind the scenes and try to assist a family, try to assist a child to make sure that they get what they need. And ultimately, if things are serious enough, these cases will come to court. We do have cases that are also filed by private parties. You know, a grandmother might believe that her grandchild is being neglected by a mother or the father, and they might come in and file a private petition. But for the most part, the Department of Children's Services is the main facilitator of dependency and neglect petitions. And it's a really important thing. The Department of Children's Services is really, really overworked. They have a lot of really hardworking case managers, a good staff that really tries to make sure that they do what they can do for the children. Unfortunately, with budget cuts and the way things are going right now, and with state budgets and federal budgets and even local budgets, getting those services to the kids is more and more difficult. That's why it's more and more important for the court to really focus on every child and make sure they're getting the best outcome possible.
Now, what are some examples, I guess, of dependency and neglect? Because when we're talking abuse, people are always thinking about somebody physically abusing a child, but it's more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, there are cases where a person might live in a house that doesn't have air conditioning and heat. In the summertime, we know in Memphis how hot it can get. So if a family doesn't have those sorts of basically the basic shelter needs, that can be neglect or abuse to some extent. If the parent's not making the child go to school or making sure the child is getting proper education, proper medical care, if the parent's allowing the child to basically run out on the streets and not really live in the house, that can be a neglect issue. Those are some of I'd say the more minor ones, but those aren't the ones that you think of sometimes when you think of abuse and neglect. Obviously, we have physical abuse cases, ranging from inappropriate discipline with with a belt to an extension cord or something like that, to horrific cases of sexual abuse and those sorts of things. We have issues with infants with drug addicted parents not being able to properly care for their children, making decisions, choosing drugs or alcohol over their child and leaving them alone while they go out and do what they need to do. Those are other aspects of abuse and neglect. And for the most part, every parent that comes in there that is the parent of a neglected or abused child needs help. So the decision we have to make is, do we help those parents, and to what extent do we help them? Do we keep them away from the children until they're better, or do we try to find a way to keep them integrated with the child while they work through their problems? And again, I hate going back to saying studies have shown, but the longer you keep a child away from the parent, the harder it is to get them back together. And the longer they're away from their parents, it makes it more difficult to make sure that that bond is reunited. Then you have problems that continue in the future.
Right, and I guess one of the things that the court does too with this is they appoint an attorney to represent the child as a guardian ad litem.
Yes.
So can you speak to that?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the great things about this court, we have a really, really strong attorney panel that has volunteered their services to work at juvenile court. And while they get paid a very, very small amount, not even close to what they've making in the open market for an hourly rate. But they serve as both appointed counsel, basically parents' attorneys, and also attorneys for the children, which are called guardian ad litems. They're both appointed under state statute, and it's required in all dependency and neglect cases for a guardian ad litem to be appointed for the child. And in cases where a parent is being alleged to be the perpetrator of the abuse or neglect, those parents are given attorneys also. And those attorneys do some really good work for the parents, make sure that their rights are kept in balance as much as possible. But a lot of times those attorneys work for the best outcome for the family and for the child. Sometimes it shouldn't really be, in my opinion, a zero-sum game in juvenile court. You don't win your case, because you don't really win a case by making sure that a parent who might have harmed a child gets back with the parent. You look at a bigger picture and try to make sure what's best for the family, and what's, of course, as juvenile court lives by, what's in the best interest of the child. But no, our attorney bar is fantastic. Belinda Dwyer, who's the coordinator of the guardian ad litem attorney panel on that side, does a fantastic job. And Marilyn Hobbs, for the delinquent side, she appoints, and we have delinquent offenders that are appointed through that bar, and she does a great job with those attorneys.
Yeah, and I guess in that process, it is kind of interesting because, I've done work down in juvenile court, and it's always, you're sitting there going, well, what's in the best interest of the child? And that's always hard to weigh out in these cases, and they're very difficult, they're complicated, and it's one of those that we've got so many of these cases going through that it's interesting when you get to thinking about it, because everybody wants to sort of discredit juvenile court as being this quasi-court that sits over here, and these other courts are real courts.
Yeah.
When the reality of it is with juvenile, that's where our most important battle is.
Yeah, and that's a real shame, because, as I said before, we come across so many children. There are over 1,000 children right now in foster care in Shelby County. And those are just the children. Obviously, if you extrapolate that to the number of parents, you take into consideration that a certain number of children leave foster care every year. We're still looking at in the past 10 years, probably close to 8,000 to 10,000 kids that have come into foster care. Where situations have been so bad, they've had to be removed from the house. We're not even talking about the cases where the situation is bad, but the parents receive assistance and the children stay there. Like I said before, it really is. It's important to understand that a child that's hurt now may have a problem in the future, whether it be going to school. We talk about making sure kids get out of high school and go to college. Well, if these children are abused and neglected, it's hard for them to focus on schoolwork when they're just trying to work. They're going to get beat up or not today. So that's important for the court.
Yeah, and I think you've said it very well there. When we return from our break, we'll talk more with Thomas Capay about Shelby County Juvenile Court. Please stay with us.